Andrew was running late, and would have grabbed a taxi if it hadn't been the rush hour. He entered the crowded metro and dodged in and out of the hordes of commuters as they headed down the escalator on their way home. Andrew wasn't on his way home. After only 4 stops, he would re-emerge from the bowels of the earth to keep an appointment with Eli Bloom, the chief executive of Chase Manhattan in Paris. Although Andrew had never met Bloom, like all his colleagues at the bank, he was well aware of his reputation. He didn't take a meeting with anyone unless there was a good reason. Andrew had spent the 48 hours since Bloom's secretary had called to make the appointment trying to work out what that good reason could possibly be. A simple switch from Crédit Suisse to Chase seemed the obvious answer, but it was unlikely to be that simple if Bloom was involved. Was he about to make Andrew an offer he couldn't refuse? Would he expect him to return to New York after he had spent less than 2 years in Paris? So many questions floated through his mind. He knew he should stop speculating, as they would all be answered at 6 o'clock. He would have run down the escalator, but it was too crowded. Andrew knew he had a few chips stacked on his side of the table. He had headed up the foreign exchange desk at Crédit Suisse for almost 2 years, and it was common knowledge that he was outperforming all of his rivals. The French bankers had simply shrugged their shoulders when they were told of Andrew's success, while his American rivals just tried to persuade him to leave his present position and join them. Whatever Bloom might offer him, Andrew was confident Crédit Suisse would match it. Whenever he had received other approaches during the past 12 months, he had dismissed them with the same polite, boyish grin, but he knew that this time would be different. Bloom wasn't a man who could be bought off with a polite, boyish grin. Andrew didn't want to move banks, as he was well satisfied with the package Crédit Suisse had given him. And at his age, what young man wouldn't enjoy working in Paris? However, it was that time of the year when annual bonuses were being considered, so he was happy to be seen taking a meeting with Eli Bloom in the American bar at the Georges V. It would be only a matter of hours before someone reported the sighting to his superiors. When Andrew stepped onto the platform of the metro, it was so crowded that he wondered if he would be able to get on the first train that pulled into the station. He checked his watch. 5:37. He should still be well in time for the meeting, but as he had no intention of being late for Mr. Bloom, he began to slip through any tiny opening or gap that appeared until he found himself at the front of the melee, well placed to climb on board the next train. Even if he didn't reach an agreement with Mr. Bloom, the man was going to be an important figure in the banking world for years to come, so there was no point in turning up late and making a bad impression. Andrew waited impatiently for the next train to emerge from the tunnel. He stared across the track at the opposite platform and tried to concentrate on what questions Bloom might ask. What is your present salary? Can you break your contract? Are you on a bonus scheme? Are you willing to return to New York? The southbound platform was just as crowded as the one he was standing on, and Andrew's concentration was broken when his eyes settled on a young woman who was glancing at her watch. Perhaps she also had an appointment she couldn't afford to be late for. When she raised her head, he immediately forgot Eli Bloom. He just stared into those deep brown eyes. She remained unaware of her admirer. She must have been about 5'8", with the most perfect oval face, olive skin that would never require makeup, and a mop of curly black hair that no hairdresser could possibly have permed. I'm on the wrong side of the track, he told himself, and it's too late to do anything about it. She checked her watch again and then looked up, suddenly aware that he was staring at her. He smiled. She blushed and lowered her head, just as 2 trains glided into the station from opposite ends of the platform. Everyone standing behind Andrew pushed forward to claim a place on the waiting train. When it pulled out of the station, Andrew was the only person left on the platform. He stared across at the train on the other side and watched it slowly accelerate out of the station. When it had disappeared into the tunnel, Andrew smiled again, Only one person remained on the opposite platform, and this time she returned his smile. You may ask how I know this story to be true. The answer is simple. I was told it at Andrew and Claire's 10th wedding anniversary earlier this year.